Welcome back to the Total Focus Podcast. I'm your host, Paul. This is part 2 to Kinosha's 2-part episode. So if you haven't listened to part 1, please take an opportunity to listen to that first. She really talks about herself growing up, doing cheerleading, being successful, becoming a Rams cheerleader, and then as she transitions and moves to DC. So I first off want to tell all of my listeners, happy Thanksgiving. I hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving, and I hope everyone enjoys this. And we again thank Kinosha for her time and telling her story. To continue on, so you kind of like moved the conversation onto DC, which is great. And I was thinking to myself, oh, good, this is a great transition. So because you were talking about buying the house and moving, and so I a lot of the times the people that I speak to are still very young into they're in their first
Right.
you know they might, I call them chapters or careers, so
They're in that
in my
first chapter.
to be honest, I honestly think you're in like your third chapter because you have
I'm in, yeah,
three major, four, family is one,
fourth
but
chapter, kind of,
right,
yeah.
first one is cheerleading. That's a big impact. Family's one. Doing your own TV show / radio show, and then also being part of the program with Mrs. DC. So,
hmm
how did you like? So moving to DC is doing the pageant. Is that kind of the reason why you do cheerleading? Was that a opportunity to be
Um,
part of the group? Was it an opportunity to like build a community around you? Like what was the
yeah,
reason to do a pageant? Because in the
absolutely.
last hour that we talked about, it didn't sound like you had participated in doing pageants at all. So
No, good ear, good ear. So when I relocated here to the DC area, I live on the Maryland side, in 2011. So I relocated a year after we were married, and relocated. My husband is originally from the DC area. His parents have a practice here. We actually together work together in dermatology. That's another part of it. I kind of changed careers and went back to school. But in moving to an area that was, I was familiar with the area just because we had been together for a while at this point, and so I had an opportunity to travel back and forth to the DC area. However, I wasn't immersed in the DC area, and I wasn't immersed in the community. And as somebody who was so immersed and so involved in my hometown and my home community, after I guess a year or two, especially after our son was born, a couple of years after, well, he was born in 2013, so about 3 years after we were married, 2 years after we were here. um, I really was missing that piece that would allow me to be a part of the community. And we
so
belong
like fellowship,
to,
like
oh
community
yeah, all
interaction.
of it. I think all of it. We belong to our church. So we had our church community, which was one thing. Of course, we had our health community, the medical community that we were part of, with practice and things of that nature, but not really in the same way that I was very involved back home. And so over the course of a couple of years, I started looking for ways to be involved. I did joined the DC STEM network prior to anything else because they offered the opportunity to be a mentor as well as be a facilitator, for for STEM related projects and activities within the schools in the DMV area. And so I did that,
And
and I was,
based on your background, just to follow people when they didn't,
yeah,
you have a background in in science and everything, and
yes,
so
yes,
I
yeah.
mean that's a natural fit for you
Yeah, it
to
was a natural fit. I was a GEMS facilitator for many years back home, and GEMS is stands for Girls Excelling in Math and Science. And GEMS was actually an organization that was brought about a very long time ago, a little more than 20 years ago. Not very long, but well, at this point, about 30 years ago, actually within military families that and schools that existed on military bases. I am from a military family as well. But GEMS, Girls Excelling in Math and Science, I was a facilitator back in St. Louis for that. And so I was looking for a GEMS organization here in the area, and most of them were directly attached within schools, so that was a little harder. And that's how I found the DC STEM network. So yeah, so that was something where I felt like, okay, I'm giving back on the educational side of things, which is something that I was accustomed to doing. And so I got a great deal of pleasure from doing that. And so worked with them kind of for a year or so. That was about 2015, 2014, 2015. And then in 2015, I actually ended up connecting with an acquaintance, a girlfriend of mine from the area who actually also happened to be a former Rams cheerleader, as well as a former Chiefs cheerleader, that happened to see on social media that I was now living in the area. And she, at the time, was the current director for Miss United States, DC, Maryland, and I believe Delaware at the time. And so she was actually looking, she saw that I was there. We connected personally, just kind of messaging each other. And then she saw that we had a dermatology practice and they were obviously looking for sponsorships. She actually also was connected with the Baltimore Ravens cheerleaders, and she had connected us with them as well because they were also looking for, some a skincare sponsor and things of that nature. But that's how we connected. But she actually was a 2014 contestant in the Mrs. DC of America pageant. And she began to tell me about it. And she said, "Oh, you should participate." She was also the wife of a military wife and veteran. And so she got involved because she relocated to this area on the Virginia side, being from the Midwest. And then like 2 months after she relocated, her husband was sent off on tour. And so she was just kind of sitting here like, "Ooh, what do I do?" And that's how she got involved. And so she was telling me about the organization. I had never, as you mentioned, ever been involved in a pageant before, never done one. Had plenty of girlfriends who did growing up, but I had never competed or participated in a pageant. And
So
this was
you,
definitely something that was going to be different for me and out of the box if I chose to do it.
so no, not even one thought that's something that you would want to do in St.
Never,
Louis. Okay.
never,
No.
never.
Okay.
It just wasn't on my radar at all.
And
And
walking
so,
walking in a dress on stage and have people oohing and ahhing at
I
you is
mean,
not
yeah,
something
I mean,
that you'd be interested in doing. I mean, you're
not at
basically in
that time.
bikini. Well, you basically, in my opinion, you're basically in bikini um at Rams games. So
Basically.
basically,
But yeah,
so
yeah,
so
basically.
having a
That's the
dress
uniform.
on, having a dress on should be less intimidating. But are
Well,
they the
yeah, and
same or less or?
no, I think they're less because the thing about it is that with cheering, I guess the difference, especially even in, um, I guess, auditioning, and so my with auditioning and doing something for that, you have okay, so you have subjective versus objective. And even though both components are there, especially, auditioning in the NFL, you've got both components there. So, of course, with you have your subjectivity, which is obviously uh, is a lot easier because the subjectivity, especially when auditioning, is more about your talent and your skill.
Mhm.
Can you do this? Can you do that? Can she complete, this routine? And how does, can your kicks, those kinds of things, which are all based upon your own skill. Of course, there's a little objectivity in there that you have nothing to do with because it is someone else's judgment about maybe your appearance or how you look, or if they think that you will fit into the squad. However, I felt that with pageants, not necessarily the pageant that I competed in, but especially I feel like some of the other pageants, especially with the younger pageants, when I was younger, I felt like, to me, they felt like they were completely um, subjective. And I was just like, yeah, I don't want to be subjected to something like that where someone's just giving their opinion about me. And I actually remember telling my friend Laura about that. And I was like, I don't know if I just want to be judged on whether or not somebody likes my dress or likes how I look in my dress. I don't know if that's really my style. And so, but she did tell me, more about it. The more I learned about it and the more that I learned about the organization, and especially on the Mrs. side, which is definitely more about philanthropy as opposed to, like your scholarship pageants and things of that nature. I was a little more intrigued. And then I was also a little more interested in the possibility of how it would allow me to become more involved in the community. So that is truly what kind of led me to consider it. And I was actually planning to compete in the 2015 pageant because I had found out about it, but it by the time I found out about it, it just felt really quick. And I didn't want to be rushed. I really wanted to do my due diligence, considering I had never done one before, and properly prepare myself. So I chose to not compete in the 2015 pageant and wait a year and competed in the 2016 pageant.
Well, clearly, waiting until 2016 was in your best interest.
Yeah.
Um, Not to burst the story, but you became Mrs. DC of America. So
I
congratulations
did.
on
I did. I did.
your first and only pageant that competing in to win a state title. So that
Oh,
is a
thank you. Thank you.
that is a I call it a say savant. I have another friend who literally competed in only 3 pageants and won all 3 state pageants. I'm like, okay, okay. I'm like,
Well, and I think some
it's
of it has to do with, again, I think we talked about this in part one of the interview. I think it's, mindset. I
oh yeah,
remember my coach.
but that's all about like we're talking about. It's all those steps that have you come.
Yes,
You know, perhaps if you weren't on that course, you wouldn't have been able to be so successful. But those were
right.
all set up from the beginning because there was things that were instilled in you and that you're instilling in your family to continue the cycle of positive.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Absolutely. And I think also again, getting to a place of understanding, and as I said before, I think this happens with maturity and growth and age, where you learn and yourself, and you understand the things that you require to be successful, for yourself, as opposed to just the generic of, well, if you do this, and someone else telling you, here's the textbook. That's what I always call it, the textbook way, because sometimes the textbook way is not going to be your way, or it's not going to work for you. So you have to, it's great to have the textbook and say, okay, here's the guides. But then you have to figure out what is going to work for you.
of
I
course,
had a
yeah.
lot of people ask me, well, how did you prepare? I did choose to hire a coach because for me, I hadn't competed in pageants before. So I wasn't 100% sure about everything. Um, had I walked a runway before? Sure. Have I worn long dresses? Sure. I'm a dancer. There's a lot of things that I can do that come naturally as far as movement goes, but I had never done a pageant. And so I don't know what necessarily it meant to model for a pageant, what a gown walk or a swimsuit walk should be. I've interviewed for myself, and I have interviewed other people. I have spoken to the Pope before, but that doesn't mean I've interviewed for a pageant.
Right, of course.
And so I needed to have these tools. And I am a person that is, as I said, I'm all about learning, and I'm
Hmm.
all about again, taking the time to do and be the best person I can. Now, does that mean that somebody can't do that without a coach? Absolutely. I just chose, that was the route that I chose. And it wasn't someone that I met with all the time, but it was very distinct. But I do remember my coach asking me, one of our very first meetings, uh, saying, "Are we doing this for fun? Are we doing this to win?"
I
And
like that
I
question. I really do like that.
didn't,
Like,
yeah, I didn't hesitate. I said, "Well, I don't do anything just for fun. Not that I don't do it for fun, but I don't do anything just for fun. So I'm here to win." And that didn't mean I knew that I would or that I knew how, but that's what I'm in it for. And I think that I've always had that mental state in whatever I do.
hmm.
So even if I have no idea how to do something or I've never done it before, I'm still always going to pursue it with the idea of being successful at it. And I think that in a nutshell. So it didn't matter. It wasn't so much about winning. And I understood what he meant. And my coach actually happened to be someone that I met a long time ago in the dance world. And it was so funny because he remembered me from probably 20 years before as someone who performed during like a Nutcracker performance at like a theater in Chicago. I mean, it was so hilarious. I was like, "Oh my god, you have the best memory ever." But yeah, I do think that you have to go into something no matter how you feel about it. And was I scared? Absolutely. This was completely out of my box, completely away from anything that I knew anything about outside of the fact of being on stage. I've been on stage all my life, but I've been on stage in different types of capacities. And so
But it's still a
this was
competition.
new.
But it was still a
Yes,
competition,
exactly.
and you
Exactly.
had the, even though you didn't know the players, you had the people around you. Like you said, you had a pageant coach that you already knew for a long time. So, you know, a lot of times, a great coach just knows how to put the pieces together to make a great team.
Right.
So,
Right.
you're your
Well,
own personal coach, so you just knew
you
how
have
to,
to be. You have to be. You have to be your own personal coach, no matter what. And
and you knew
even
how to put
even
your
in having
players.
someone.
You know how to put your players together to make you be
Yeah,
successful. So,
absolutely, absolutely. Every good team, you have to just know you can have the best people around you, but if you don't know how to arrange them in your favor, then it's not going to matter.
I mean, doing a pageant as a married woman, do you have any suggestions? Like, would you say, would you recommend it for someone who just wants fellowship and more friendship, or or do you think that you need to bring people there to be more comfortable, or are you doing it more as an outreach to build your own business? Like, what are the real
Well,
reasons to do a pageant
I think
when you're married?
yeah, I think everyone obviously is going to have their own motivations for why, for me it was honestly, win or lose, it was to understand and get more involved in the DC community. I knew from doing my research that this particular pageant in the DC area was highly involved in community aspects. They had lots of connections, meaning that they were highly respected by a lot of organizations that did nonprofit organizations, educational as well as health and community aspects. They did a lot with veterans. I'm a wife of a veteran. I am a wife. I'm a granddaughter, daughter-in-law, daughter, cousin, sister of veterans. And so, having such a heavy involvement in the lives of military families and things of that nature was also extremely important to me. And so, everybody has their own motivations. I personally never looked at it, same as being a part of the NFL, as, oh, if I do this, then this is going to get this for me. I entered it because I really wanted to push myself beyond my comfort zone, as well as really become kind of the best me that I thought I could be in a new place and in a community that I didn't know. I had to get uncomfortable so that I could grow in a new community. And to do that as an adult, I think is very hard because you have, especially, I left when I relocated and left St. Louis. I left St. Louis as a very well established career woman, community advocate, as well as having many accolades for things that I had done for
Well,
more than 18 years.
well, yeah. I mean,
Um,
you like you were saying, you would work. You're working for the governor, and
yeah,
you're established with the cheerleading community there. You had gone
yeah.
through
I
two
mean, everything
marriages.
from,
You know,
yeah,
so
I worked for many
very well
organizations,
established,
and
right?
it was very hard, and then to come to a place where I really had no connections. And so for me, that was my motivation. Now I do know that, for some people, their motivation is honestly just to have some sort of fellowship with other women. For some people, it's just to have something to do outside of their normal everyday. For others, it's about, truly becoming like self motivated to make themselves better. And so, there are all sorts of reasons that I think you should do it. I think the most important thing, though, to think about, and I think it doesn't matter whether it's a Mrs. Pageant, a Miss, a teen, a junior teen, a preteen, princess, whatever it is. Um, I think that it's important that if you embark on this type of a journey for yourself, that you are truly doing it for yourself. I think that when you set yourself up to do it because you think of, if I do this, I'll get this, um, then you kind of set yourself up for the possibility of disaster. Because I do think that you can't pre anticipate, not so much about the winning or the losing, but about what type of gratification that you're going to get from it. And if you're not getting self gratification in the process leading up to it, you're not going to have any kind of gratification whether you win or not.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense because you have to assume that at the end of the day, you're going to go home to your loving family and
Right,
your all the support that you need, and
right.
that if you do win, then it's a plus, and then and every
Right, it's a plus,
because
and
at
there
this
can
point,
only be one winner. And
right, and but
so,
at this point, if you're married, you should have that support at home. I mean,
yeah,
especially so everything else should be a plus. So
everything else is just the icing on top. I think winning is the icing on top. I can honestly say that, I remember the moment, and I think my the uh, my co-competitor, who was the first runner up, who I think is a phenomenal badass woman herself, is, I think we both, one of the things I remember the most fondly, and it will be the moment that I enjoyed probably the most. I can almost as much as, I think I can say, I don't know, it's probably equal to them calling my name, but I remember standing there, and in that moment, I think both of us, being the type of people that we are, mind you, by the way, she is a Marine and a she's just awesome, and an entrepreneur and a business owner herself. But I remember standing there and just thinking that at this point in time, I'm good with whatever happens right now. I'm good with not winning and being Zoe's first runner up. I'm good with what I was completely happy, because I was happy with myself. I was happy and satisfied and proud of the job that I had done. And not just that night and that day, but all the months leading up to competing. I was very proud of the work that I had put in. My family was very proud of the work that I had put in. And so I was thrilled that I was in the position that I was in, but I was so at ease with the work that I had done. And so no matter how the chips had fall. And I know sometimes people say, "Oh, you can say that because you win," but I remember standing there, and Zoe can tell you the exact same. We were literally talking to each other, and I remember both of us literally had the same, statement to each other, that we were just like, we were both good with however this lands. It was just like, and we said that to each other. We were like, doesn't even matter. At this point, doesn't even matter. We were holding hands because we thought that either one of us was well deserving of the honor. And although only one person could win, I knelt to her because I thought she was an absolutely phenomenal, I still do, phenomenal woman. And I just feel that at the end of the day, that is what is important. You have to be good with you. You have to be proud of you. Because yes, only one person is going to win the crown. Only one person is going to walk away. When I competed in Mrs. America, at the end of the day, you have 52 women on a stage, and you're only going to have one winner. And you have to be good with that. You have to be good with what you have put forth. And if you can go into that and come out of it knowing that you did you and that you put forth 100% and more, and you didn't compromise yourself, your ethics, your integrity, and who you are, then you won, period.
You know, as you get older in life, sometimes you forget about stuff. So to me, it
Yeah,
feels like this is just a reaffirmation to remind you that that you can do this kind of stuff. That
absolutely.
that
Take a
you
chance.
exactly, and that you know life is fun, and knowing that you're okay just being the best mom and the best wife
Yeah. And
possible,
being the best you.
you
Just
being the
be the
best
best
you.
you.
But then
Yeah. Yeah.
if they do pick your name, then it's an absolute thrill too.
Yeah,
uh
it's a thrill and it's an honor. I think I was very honored. I was very thankful. I was extremely thankful not only to the organization, but I was also very thankful to my family and my friends. I was fortunate to have about 35 family and friends that were there that night, because they were on this journey with me too. My husband, my children, my parents, my siblings, they were on this journey with me too. And you know, it's it's not my title to hold. It's a title that I carry, but I carry the weight of not only, my state or my district, but I also carry with me the weight and the expectations and the of my family, of my friends, of the community, of the organizations, because I am representing them. And so every single day I had to remember that I am that representation. Even the days that maybe I really didn't feel that great, I am representing. And if I had to, be that, this is a job just like anything else. And I took it very seriously. And I do, I do feel like that it was very appreciated and reciprocated. And, I honored my predecessors. I was very thankful to have them as guides and as supports because, as someone who had not done this or been in the pageant foray before, I always look to them, especially my direct predecessor, Elaine, for guides and tips, and who was always there to say, no problem. This is how you handle this. And so, all of that comes into play. And I think that people have to remember that anyone, or, if you compete and if you win, don't forget about and remember to, hold at a high regard that community of people that are helping you along the way and who helped you along the way get there, because they're also going to be those people that are going to help you during that year of your reign.
Do you think that you would be on the same path in DC if it wasn't for the pageant, or do you think you would still be lacking something if it wasn't for the pageant? Do you think that pageant really?
Um, I mean, definitely the pageant helped with me immersing myself in the community. I do think that whether or not I would have done the pageant, I would have found a way.
Okay.
Just because it's who I am, I would have found a way. Now, that way may have
I mean,
been
I get
different,
that.
but
I get that from our
yeah,
conversation that you were going to find your way.
I would
I
have
mean,
found a way. I do think that
you're so bully headed and
I am.
confident
I'm like,
and
gotta do it. However, I am one to yield to the fact that even though I felt like I would have found my way, I think that this is the path that was laid for me to find. And so even though it was an uncomfortable path in many ways, because it was something that was unfamiliar, I do feel that this was the path that I was meant to take to get to where I am and to doing the things that I'm doing now. So, yeah, I do think, of course, I wouldn't have just thrown up my hands and said, you know, I'm just going to stay in my little bubble.
no.
But, I definitely do think that, you know, sometimes this is, and I go back again, we talked about this a lot during part one, is, there are times where things are laid out for you that you may not have chosen yourself if it were not brought to you. But, or you may not have gone out looking. I would have never probably went to my laptop and Googled Mrs. DC America if it were not for knowing Laura and her coming, all of these things, all of these pieces fit together for a reason. And I do believe that, yes, absolutely. The being Mrs. DC America 2016 allowed me to get to know people in the entire DMV area, for those people to get to know about me, for me to get to share my passions about STEM, about girls excelling in math and science, about, what my passions were for the community, and to make myself recognized. One of the biggest honors was that, I mean, I had a flag flown in my honor over the Capitol at the request of Congresswoman Norton. And, she recognized that I was passionate and sincere about truly doing the work that needed to be done in order to get people to recognize that, more needs to be done to encourage girls to study math and science and to continue to excel in STEM and STEAM based things so that they didn't fall off. And, it wasn't just talking the talk, but walking the walk. And so I think that there are many, many reasons that I was meant to go this path in this way in order to achieve, what was truly in my heart at the beginning, which was to become a part of the community.
I just wanted to take 1 second from this great interview and talk about our sponsor of the week, Mid Atlantic Video and Photography Productions. No matter if you're planning a wedding, a special event, or you just need an amazing headshot, they are the team to get the job done. You can reach out to them at 443-422-3830. Again, that's 443-422-3830. Or you can just go right to their website at mavpp.com. Now let's get right back to the show and listen to this great interview. Now that you've finished your year of being the state title holder and doing your year of service, and really being indoctrinated into the DC community, um, you started this show with some of the other contestants. So why don't you tell us all about this show and how
Sure.
things are going? What's the name of the
Sure.
show, first
So,
of all?
okay, so the show that I have, which started at the end of 2016, early 2017, is called Good Things DC. And Good Things DC came about. I was actually a guest on the Renee Allen show, which is a radio, a streamed, oh, well, it's a radio podcast that is also a live video cast streamed from WLBS Radio, which is based out of DC. And I was a guest as Mrs. DC America during one of her shows. And I was actually approached by the owner of the station following my interview and the end of her show about possibly if I was interested in creating a show for the station. And
Well,
I
that's a huge
remember,
compliment boost because they
well,
don't. I
it
mean,
was it was interesting. It was
okay,
interesting. I remember Jeremy Beaver, who is the owner of that station. I remember him asking me if I ever had any radio experience, and I thought it was an odd question because I thought, well, we just talked about all my experience, and none of it was radio. So, but no,
It
I
just
have
shows
not had
how
any
much
radio
people.
experience.
Well, that just well just show it just shows how much people pay attention to, and
Well,
and
and I got what he, well, that was in my head, but I got what he was saying. And, I think
well,
what, because he said he was making a observation that
right.
you seem very comfortable
I'm also being really
speaking and
sarcastic
talking.
too. You
But no,
know,
I know, I agree.
it's like
That's
that.
what was in my head. Yes.
You know how guys don't really pay attention. They just it's
Exactly.
just like
Exactly. Well,
we just read the the cliff notes, as they say in
the
college.
cliff notes,
We're
right?
just
Well,
reading the
and
cliff notes.
that's exactly like what you said was exactly what was in my head. That's how in my head I'm going. We just had this whole like interview. You didn't listen, but yeah. So no, I hadn't had any radio experience, but I was a little intrigued, and I was like, but I was kind of like, well, first of all, I'm not even done with the rain, and I still have like a few months left to do things, and I'm real busy. I think at the end of the organization as a whole, and so I don't necessarily take credit for it because they worked, as far as a great PR and directorship and all of that. But, by the time I had won, we had gotten up to where I think by the end of my reign, I think I had for the year somewhere around 130, 135 appearances for the year, which is a lot. For a Mrs. DC, I think my predecessor was somewhere around 120. So it has grown every year, which is great, and that's exactly what it should do. But I was like, yeah, I'm still working a lot, and so no, this isn't really probably something I want to take on. And I remember Dr. Renee Allen was like, maybe you should just give a little thought about it because I think it's something that might be good. And so I said, okay, let me think about it and maybe I'll take a meeting. And so, which I did. And I brought my husband along because I wanted him to hear the same things that I was hearing so we could kind of hash it out. And, one of the things Jeremy had imposed upon me, he said, well, I really want someone who is able to kind of come in and basically do, in a sense, kind of what Renee had done for herself over the years of being there and really create a community of viewers and listeners all on her own, in her own way, and authentically, and in something that was different than what was there. And I thought, okay, so basically, you're giving me carte blanche of whatever I want to do. That's fine. And then I was also
Well, that's a
offered,
huge
which all of
compliment. That's a huge
well,
compliment
it,
too,
it is.
because
It was a great one. Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
because you fully admit that you have no background
No,
in broadcasting or have a
no,
journalist
no,
degree. For
not
him
at
to give
all.
you, he saw a gem that needed to be shined,
No,
and no,
I was like,
I'm just that's the way I'm
okay.
looking at it, like
Yeah,
because
well, and I
he
think
gave you reins to
he gave
to
me
this,
reins to do whatever I wanted.
and that gives a lot of courage on his side, because you
Yeah,
could totally tank his,
right.
his hour, um, and
Right, that's
every,
fine.
and and time is money. So
Time is money. And and that was the also the other part of it is that he said, and this wasn't right away, but as I went into it, he said, well, I want to tell you this only because I think it's something I want you to think about it, because he said, not, because I know not every broadcaster here would be interested in this, but it is something that I could see you might be interested in, and that would come into play later down the line. So I always thank him and I credit him with seeing something, as you just said, that I didn't see yet. And, he offered me the opportunity to be able to not only broadcast from there, but own my show, meaning that I would own all the content, which would allow me to in the future do with as I pleased. As well as, the studio would obviously be able to distribute the content, for themselves, but I would also have ownership of the content, which would mean that if I ended up growing it to something else, that I didn't have to go through them in order to utilize any old content or anything that was produced in their studio.
that's a
Um,
sweet deal you got, because I mean,
yeah.
going even the Beatles had to fight for their. I mean, so I mean,
Right, right.
you and your husband totally worked out a sweet deal there, because that's a no, it's
It's
great.
a big thing, especially when you're utilizing someone else's resources for your
Resources and
production as this.
times, and they're
Right,
putting,
right.
they're
And
putting
people
effort
and the
into you.
people.
Right, exactly.
Right. So we have, production for our a board operator and things like that, or that's being paid by the radio station. So I debuted the show in March of 2017. Actually, I think like a week or two before the 2017 pageant. When I debuted Good Things DC, the first episode debuted. It was just myself, 1 hour show. And the premise of Good Things DC was to be basically a lifestyle talk show where we would discuss basically things, regular things about life. So everything from fashion and beauty, health and wellness, food, travel, all kinds of things. And, basically spend an hour talking to or talking about things, people, places that would basically help you to basically be your best self and live your best life. That was basically what I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be something that would always be positive, that would always have a positive imprint on those watching and listening, as well as offer a way for people to learn about something in the process. So that was always, kind of the mission statement for Good Things DC. About 4 episodes in, I started to kind of want to bring in some other pieces that would help the show kind of segue into maybe other things. And so I came up with the idea of having a beauty and style panel, which debuted on the 4th episode of the first season. And on the beauty and style panel is where you first meet the current other two co-hosts of Good Things DC, Leia and Britt. And I met Leia and Britt as they were actually 2017 contestants for Mrs. DC America. I met Britt first as she was an early entry or an early entry contestant for Good Things DC, and we did a couple of events together, and just fell in love with her just passion for not only her family, her two little boys, but just for wanting to be at her very best. And she just seemed like fearless of wanting to try new things. And so I just thought she was an absolute doll. Subsequently, Britt had decided later into the competition, into the few months leading up to the competition, to not compete for 2017. due to some other things that she had with family and
Right, like
traveling and things
life
like that.
issues. Right.
Just like myself, kind of in like how in 2015 I was like, she had a little one that was still kind of little, and she was like, maybe I'm biting off more than I can chew. But we stayed in contact, and I met Leia, who actually was a late entry contestant to 2017, who actually ended up becoming Mrs. DC 2018. And
Yes,
for whatever reason,
Leia's
I
been
just
on.
fell in love with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So Leia told us a story that she decided to do it only 3 months beforehand,
Yes, yes,
and
yeah.
basically she
She came
was
in
dragging her,
December.
dragging her, dragging her hand, and she said she was just trying to get married, and they were trying to fit her for the
Yes,
evening gown. So
yes, yes, yes. So like Leia, I met Leia in December of 2016. The pageant was in March of 2017. So that's when she joined the crew. She literally joined right before the deadline, and so but she joined right after Britt actually decided to pull out. So Britt actually had joined the contestant team of 2017 in June, so she was very early. And but she left in November, and then Leia actually came in December. So I met them at different times. They had actually never met each other, but I met both of them, and both of them just left this really huge impression just on my spirit and on my heart. And even though I hadn't talked to them like regularly, leading up to asking them to be a part of this panel, I remember very clearly kind of really searching within myself of like, I wanted to do this and I really had no idea who to ask. And all I could really do was kind of ask God to send me a sign of who. And, I remember waking up one morning and both of them just popped into my mind. And so I sent them both separate emails because they didn't know each other, asking them if they would be willing to be panelists on this beauty and style panel that I wanted to do as a debut episode for the show. They both happened to say yes, which I was ecstatic about. And they were joined by a friend of mine who is the owner of a modeling agency here in DC, and that I already knew, and that's how the beauty and style panel was brought about. And after a couple of episodes of them being on the panel, it just all was just like too good to kind of let go. And I formally asked them if they would be interested in being permanent co-hosts on the show. And so we wrapped season 1 of Good Things DC, of the Beauty and Style panel, and with the Beauty and Style panel, and we introduced during the during the fall of 2017, season 2 of Good Things DC with the three of us, Kinosha, Leia, and Britt, as we are now in season 4, or just wrapped season 4 of Good Things DC. And we became actually one of the top 4 viewed shows at WLVS Radio. So we were being watched by in over 5 different continents, 120 different countries. I can't even tell you the number of people being streamed that were streaming us. And so we were so excited and just like honored in the way that we were received. And I would have never in my wildest dreams like thought that would have been something that I could have ever done.
and that goes back to that one radio producer giving you an opportunity, and
Yeah.
now that he has given you the rights, um, if you're okay,
Yeah,
you're moving on to a bigger studio and a bigger
we
program, and you're
are.
going. What do you know? What channel you're going to be on,
So
or
we
what? I
are
don't know what the
officially.
details. So you
Yeah,
tell.
yeah. So we are moving from radio and online streaming to an actual cable network.
Awesome.
We are
Congratulations.
officially a
That's
part.
such a huge
Thank
thing.
you,
You
thank you,
know,
thank you.
this is a big thing, because sometimes people
It is. It is.
don't take you legit until, I mean,
No,
you can get
no.
views.
Well,
there's such a negative connotation for people that are YouTubers, especially in Hollywood.
Yes,
So
yes.
basically, you're going from being a YouTuber to a
In a sense,
professional,
yeah. In
and
a sense, yeah, because
this is the big test because
this is the big test
you
because
do
this
have the
is
audience. You just need
right.
to
This is the
demonstrate that
full
that audience will come
production.
with you. So
What comes exactly, and that's kind of the risk that that they're taking on us. So we are our next step is I call it a it's definitely a next step. So we're
mhm.
going into the regional markets basically as will be a debut show for the DC Office of Cable and Television
So
and Film, Music, and Entertainment, and which will debut in the spring of 2020. And
congratulations, congratulations! It's
thank
so
you.
exciting.
And we're very excited about it. But yeah, I mean, it has come with a lot of hard work. It's
Well, yeah,
basically
of
been
course.
3 years
Yeah,
in.
yeah.
4 seasons, 3 years. A lot of waiting, a lot of preparation, a lot of trust, and I am ultimately thankful not only for the opportunity, but I also am thankful. I know they always say we're so thankful that Kenosha, saw something in us to bring us on and trusted us. But I say, I'm thankful that they trusted me to bring them along on this ride and to grow with me and to grow Good Things DC. Because even though people will say, "Oh, it's your baby," I feel like from the moment they were there, I was like, "This is our baby, and we need to grow this in the way that we want." This is our thing in our texts or emails is we're the GTDC family, and that family is not just the three of us. We also have our fourth host, which came on during our fourth season. So DJ Willful, which is Will Turner, who is actually a clinical psychologist. He works for the Department of Justice, so it's really kind of cool to have. We've got our guy of the house now, and it's really nice to have this family of us, our spouses, our children, our supporters, our friends, people like you who have seen kind of the movement happen as it has gone through, and we're just really excited for all of those that saw something in us, took a chance on us, said, okay, we see what you're trying to do. And they really understood the vision and have never made us or asked us to compromise that. And that's also something that I'm extremely grateful for. I've never been asked to be anyone other than me. And I think that what has propelled Good Things to where it has been. If you've never, if anyone's ever watched or you've never watched the show, you can see some of the old shows on YouTube. But we are I categorize us as being three very different women who are exactly the same. And I
No,
think
but I also think that but I also think that your story is something that is really important. One, um, yes, you seem to be like an overnight success, but in all reality, you've been working on this since you were 16 because that going back to what we're talking about in episode 1, it goes back to building discipline and time
yes,
management and
yes,
being part of a team and being a coach because those are all
yep,
things that you learned being a
yeah,
cheerleader and
yeah,
then you apply that to winning a pageant
absolutely.
that built a team there and now on the show you're basically you're definitely the producer of the show but you're
Yeah,
also the
I'm
captain
kind of
but you're also the
well,
captain
yeah. I
too.
mean, this is something where I say, it's funny because I feel I'm kind of that person. I don't publicly I'm not a person who publicly toots myself, I guess, in a sense. It's one thing to kind of have a bio, and so a lot of times when people ask me, just recently we were asked to be panelists. We ran or not ran, but we were featured panelists at the the first annual AM Latino Film Festival that happened in Rockville a couple of weeks ago, and we were
Cool.
very honored to be a part of that. And they, of course, in asking for bios, it's always funny when I'm not funny, but it takes me back for a second. I've also been a speaker, a featured speaker with the Women in Power Expo for the last 3 years. And this past year, I was really excited to ask to speak on a main stage panel about uh, imposter syndrome and what that means, especially for entrepreneurs and women entrepreneurs. And the thing about it is that, it's something that I go through all the time. And like I'm sitting writing my bio, that someone asked me to write about Good Things DC. And, every time I started off with, creator, writer, producer, and it's not that any of that is not true because that is what I do for the show. But it's very humbling because to me it's just work. It's work that I love, and it's work that I found my tribe in Leah and Britt that also love, and that I'm fortunate enough to have the support, the unyielding support of my family, my husband, my daughter, who spent numerous hours trying to teach her mom all about certain things. Mind you, she is a a television and film major and journalism major, so I got a few pointers from her. But all of these things that have come together. But ultimately, once again, this was another moment in life, or chapter as you call it,
Mm-hmm.
where I had to leap out of my box and get real uncomfortable. And one of the things that is the common denominator, I think, for all three of us, really all four of us, because including DJ Will, um, all of us we're new to this. So when I brought Leia and Bridget, they always joke and say, I have no idea why she wants me there, but what I did appreciate was that they said we respected you and loved you so much and trusted you so much that we would have come at whatever calling you asked us to do. And to me, that means more to me than anything.
Well,
Um,
that just shows how much you're such a leader, because any any person who's a soldier, um, that is committed to their leader or to their squadron would, band together and do anything they can to win that task. I mean,
yeah.
I just watched Midway, the movie that came out this week, and they had to band together. So
Yes.
for you to have a team that wants to band, you have exactly all the team that you need
Yeah. Yeah.
to win. So
And I feel that that is why we have been able to do what we do. I think, three major things is that, we are a family. We do things as a family. We made that choice early on that this would be, it's an all or none situation. Two, that we are, the integrity to what we are, meaning as good things, and what that brand is and what we are, and that we choose to never compromise that at whatever cost. We have stayed true to that. And three, that we always remember that, at the end of the day, nothing is more important than the bond and the friendship and the family that we've created because of this. And, all three of us, none of us are from the area originally, including Will. He's been here the longest, but none of us are originally from the DC area. And I think it's kind of funny because I think at the time that we were all brought together, we were all kind of in a place of, I'm not 100% sure if this is where I want to stay forever. I don't know if I want to be here.
but
And, we
DC
were
is,
all in that place.
it's one of those weird the places that DC brings so many different people together, and
Yes,
you may not be there for your entire life, but it's a
right.
very interesting. And the people that do live here, their entire life or are born and raised,
Absolutely.
are
Absolutely.
just completely unique
Yes.
compared to anyone else in the entire country.
Yes. Well,
And
I
you
always,
get that more as you travel too. When you
you see that. And, like I said, I always take to mind, um, I never take for granted the fact that I do believe that things are, again, blueprinted and designed for us. My husband always says to me, our meeting, our coming together, which included, unfortunately, the divorce from my first husband. We divorced before we met, but I would have never met my husband now if I hadn't been divorced before. And none of those things are by accident.
well,
And
like
I
you,
feel that
we
that is the case.
we also you made a point to say that you're very religious, and it was just not the path that God wanted you to go on. So
No,
yeah,
it
and
wasn't. And exactly. And this, I probably would have never, just because of the, not that I would have never lived someplace else, but I do think that because of my loyalty and my connection and my closeness with my family, and because of how I grew up, not that I wouldn't have found a way to be very successful, you know, at home, and success in my definition of success. But you know, I do think that this, in meeting him was the push. And who says that it wasn't the push to make good things DC? And that's why, there are always things that are put into motion. I think for every individual, I do think that we as human beings, often kind of thwart those things because some things we're afraid of. Trust me, I thought, oh my God, who in the world thinks that I want to get up here and just talk to a single camera and pretend like I'm talking to thousands of people that I don't see, and I've never done
and
this before, and
they think I'm
this is going to be
intelligent,
terrible.
right? And they think I'm
Right.
intelligent, and they don't think that I'm a completely mad person because I'm just talking to
Yeah,
myself.
exactly, exactly,
Paul, do you think you're
exactly.
great? Yes, I'm great. Do you think you're great? I'm
Right,
great. Yeah.
exactly. Absolutely, absolutely. So that was my first thought. But I thought, if I'm supposed to feel this uncomfortable and this is being put in front of me to do that, just like with the pageant, just like with moving here, just like having a 6 year long distance relationship post a first marriage, gone awry, all of these things, that have turned out to be scary, hard, fearful, but yet successful, then hey, who am I to to go a different way? Or, as I guess I can go back in the day and say, sweat the technique. I'm just not the
Exactly.
one. So I'm not going to say no to the pathway that, that I'm put on. But yeah, great, good things is doing good things. We are, really excited about what is to come. We've got, a few more interests in other parts of the nation. And our show will be syndicated and in other markets, including, right now, I think we've been told, Boston, Miami, Dallas, Chicago, and then possibly one other market other than DC.
I mean,
And
that's so exciting.
yeah.
Is there any thoughts to do any like meetups with your fans, or to do any public appearances, or
Oh,
just to
absolutely. So we'll be doing some things, I think, over the next few weeks. We're going to definitely take advantage of our breaks, because we always say when we have these breaks that we're going to take advantage and we're going to rest, and then we end up like doing 1,000 other things and it doesn't feel like a break at all. However, one of the things that has always been a staple for Good Things DC has been, our yearly holiday special that we always do, Good Things After Dark, which has always been, a taped holiday show that we would do for the station. And so I think what we would like to do this year, we're definitely going to do, we had people say, oh, wait a minute, you're ending WLBS before you're beginning the other thing. What about the Christmas show? Everybody remembers the holiday show. And we're like, well, okay. So I think we're going to do, Good Things After Dark, but I think we're going to, look to do it someplace and host it someplace where we can have, actually a live feed. We're going to do it as a live broadcast. We haven't decided all the mediums that we're going to do it in. We have a couple of options that have been presented to us, but where we can actually invite some of our local kind of fans and family and people that supporters to kind of come and do it with us and enjoy it with us and have a good time as our official send off from radio and introduction to TV.
Well, that's really exciting because
Yeah.
um, that was the other thing I was wondering. Were you interested in also doing some of the shows live to tape, or have an audience, or have a studio audience in any of your shows in the future as
Yeah.
well? So,
Yeah. It's set up. I mean, the DC studio, the DC station is set up for live audiences. With some tapings, they prefer not to have them, for obvious reasons. Every now and again, when they do host, they do have some, celebrities, that national celebrities that come in to do some of the shows that are taped there, such as the 202. As well as some of the other shows that are taped directly out of that studio. They will have a studio audience for, like, musical guests and things of that nature. However, sometimes, depending on if they are, it's a controlled studio guest, which meaning that they have a specific invitation to come and watch the taping. They usually prefer not to,
of course.
just so that they don't have to retape. And so, honestly, and that's a funny question, because that's probably the newest aspect for us, is because we have been so accustomed to doing our show live that now that we actually don't have live. But when I will say that I give kudos to my team. This is one of the things that I think that we were being groomed for during our. We have had our first pilot run through, and one of the last things that the producer for the studio and the production leader said was that, we think we like you guys more off teleprompter than on teleprompter, which means that
Oh, I
they
love
like us
that.
just as
Yeah.
we are. Yeah. So we did both just to kind of see, and they said, no, we like your energy just as it is. And so that was also just a compliment to, definitely, to me as a writer, but also a compliment to my team and a compliment to what we have done. Because to have someone say, not only we like what you're doing, we want to produce you, but we want to produce you just as you was just the probably one of the biggest compliments that I could
Oh,
receive.
absolutely,
And
because that's not the
yeah,
norm. The norm is usually that they
yeah,
want to conform you to the
yes,
constraints that they want you to. So for
yes,
them to give
yes,
you that range, it just, you really are getting these the good opportunity, and people are giving opportunities, and that's what you need in life, is you need someone,
yes.
and I know, based on our friendship, that you when you get opportunities, you pass those opportunities on to other people. So,
Always,
and so
always,
that's one of the things that I do appreciate from our friendship, that
always.
we've,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Well, and that's just something that I've always, I think, my family, my parents, they've just instilled in us, not necessarily just from telling us. My husband was raised the same way. His parents are the same way. Um, it means, I've always felt that, yes, it's great to have success for yourself. It's great to accomplish things on your own. I've always been very fortunate to obviously have a large family to share my successes with, as well as my failures. But it it just means so much more to me to have others and to be around others. And I would give anything to get, my team, my family, my friends to a next level. I'm the first person in line to say, how can I get you there? Because, I just feel that it's just it's just what we're supposed to do as human beings.
hmm
If we don't do that for each other, And sometimes you need to do that, even if you don't know how you're going to do it. But,
Yeah.
it's just that person knowing that you are on their team, and that you are there for them. That's all that counts. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's usually never a second thought that this is, just like I told them from the get-go. And I think that was something that they knew, and they knew that I was genuine about in my spirit, that even from the moment that they stepped foot on Good Things DC, I said, look, whatever happens here now from this point on is ours. It's not just mine, it's ours. And this success is our success, because um it wouldn't be without all of us. We are Good Things DC. And, we were told that by the president of the OCTFME, that, there is no good things without Britt, Leia, and Kenosha. And that again is another compliment to who we are, because that means that we made that connection with other people, of so that they see that this is truly a genuine um family
Mhm.
of, wanting to deliver this goodness out in the world. And so, but we do it in our most authentic selves, and
And
that's
that's
the only way
apparent.
we know how to
And
be.
that's apparent. And it
Yeah,
comes off genuine, because that's why so many people tune in. So, I mean,
yeah,
so I
what you
I,
get is what you see.
exactly. I've taken up I've taken up more than a gracious amount of your time, but
No
I hope
problem.
you only the best, and
Thank you.
we know your show is going to do very well, and
Thank you.
I
Thank you.
thank you so much. I hope everyone enjoys this 2-part special, and I really do appreciate you coming on the show and really explaining why they should turn into your shoe, and
Absolutely.
please, and all of her information, her show, it's all going to
Yep.
be in her bio at the end of the show, guys. So just tune
Yep.
in, and yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Paul. I had a great time, and thank you all for listening.
What an incredible 2-hour special. What a special person. You only give someone who really has so much to tell an opportunity to speak that long, because someone who's got something to say and it's important, she wants to help people, and she really believes in paying it forward. This is someone who's so successful, but success means so much more, that she wants to help people. And you can just tell, just having this conversation, that the way she believes is that success is by helping other people. She has a beautiful family, and she has all these other line of successes, but she really wants to help other people, and she wants to tell her story. She wants people to be successful themselves. Thank you so much, Kenosha, for your 2-hour plus informative talk, and we appreciate your time. If you have enjoyed this 2-part special, I can't enough to encourage you. I know that there's 84% of my followers, of my listeners, that are not subscribed on YouTube. It would be a huge appreciation if you guys could either give us a like or at least give us a subscribe. I really appreciate the time and effort for you guys to listen to our show, and I would love for you guys to please subscribe. Again, we are both on iTunes and on YouTube, and we would appreciate you guys giving us a comment and giving us a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Either way is a positive notation in my mind. We love feedback. Please let us know what you're thinking of the show, and always stay tuned. And please have a safe, amazing Thanksgiving and holiday weekend.